Yeah, brilliant. Right, good evening everyone. As Tom says, I'm Andy Beveraly and I'm going to give a talk about simple server monitoring, and it will become clear as we go on. So a quick introduction about myself first, for those that don't know me. So I was actually in the Navy for 10 years. Whilst I was in the Navy, I ran a little business on the side called Simple List, which is an email list service. But I then left the Navy a few years ago and set up a company called Victrola to work on full-time. And the original concept behind that was to be a sort of general purpose provider of open source IT systems. What I've ended up doing is focusing a lot on software as a service. So what did I need? I'll just talk a bit about the background first as to where this came from. When I set up Controller, I ended up, because I'd come from the public sector, I ended up doing a lot of work for the public sector, and I still do. And the public sector, for those that haven't worked with it, is quite keen on things like information assurance. So I had to be sort of very tight in that regard. And one of the things I had to do was get myself ISO 27001 certified. For those that don't know about that standard, it's the information assurance standard. Lots of requirements in it, but one of the things that you need to do is demonstrate that you've got some sort of monitoring of your services. And with this standard, you get yearly external audits. And of course, you write all your stuff at the beginning, you say what you're going to do, and then eventually your external auditor comes in and you need to make sure that you are actually doing what you said you're going to do. So what I needed to do, I needed to comply with the server monitoring aspect. So I thought, well, this is easy. So about a week before the auditor came, I thought, well, this is easy. I'll just download, one of the well-known server monitoring tools like Singer or Nagios. And I don't know whether it was just me, but I had an absolute nightmare. I spent a whole day trying to install these things. I can't believe it was just, I don't know whether I was doing something wrong because a lot of people installed and downloaded it, but I really struggled. And in the end, I was just like, I just need to cut my losses. It just seemed that I just wanted to do something really simple, which was monitor a handful of servers to check they're online, and have like a massive sort of enterprise level system. I tried Nagios first, then I tried Singer, and I thought this is enough. So I just wanted something really lightweight, and I thought, I'm just going to do this myself. The reason is because I thought I'd touch on this because a few years ago I read an article. I don't know if this is a well-known thing. A few years ago I read an article online which I thought was quite good, which is about trying to make the case for not reaching for code whenever you've got a problem. So it's saying we should first of all spend some money to try and fix your problem, then you should try and spend some time, and only then should you start coding. And I can see the point of that because it's to try and stop the sort of proliferation of lots of unmaintained code in an organisation. So I did sort of do this. I didn't have any money to spend. I did spend some time on a day. But then I thought, well, actually I'm a programmer and I quite like programming, and I'm just going to try and do this and solve this problem. So I created some software called Admonitor. This was a couple of years ago now, but I've sort of been working on it a bit recently. In fact, the post I did on the Poemongers mailing list recently about memory leak was actually having to do with this software, so I thought it'd be a good, whilst it's currently a good thing to talk about. So just a quick overview first. So it's modular by design. Generally a centralised architecture, so one central monitoring server, and then I wanted to make it very modular, so I've got lots of plugins. Even though they're very simple, I just wanted to make it sort of nice and easy to maintain and plug into later. So I decided to break my plugins into 3 different types, as it says there. So I've got something I call agents, which are the plugins that actually sit on the servers being monitored. So that's things like monitoring their memory use. And I called some plugins checkers, and that's ones that are external, that sit on the central monitoring server and go and check things like can I ping that server. And then finally I did some plugins or intended to do some plugins for alerters, that's stuff to bring an incident to somebody's attention. At the moment it's just hard coded as a straightforward email, which works for all I need up to date. So I'll just talk about those in turn. So the agent obviously runs on the particular server being monitored, so I wanted to keep it sort of fairly small and lightweight, so I decided just to make it a HTTPS daemon, just written in Perl code, and that just runs the service and it logs some sort of resource on the server. So the default ones there are a memory, CPU, disk space, but it's very easy to add another one. In fact, I've added some sort of more custom ones for some of my servers. And they log to a SQLite database. I just found that a nice easy way to chuck some data in and know it's going to be there to read back at some later point in time. And then the idea of that was that it will log it all locally, and then it can be read back by the controller. And if the comms are down for some reason, then you can still get that data back. I think from what somebody told me when I talked to them previously, I think Singer and Magos actually just read the stuff directly every time. So, but I made the decision to log it locally and then get the data from some sort of transaction later on. So the checkers, so like I say, they run on the central controller and they go out and do something to whatever particular host is that you want to check. So I've just got a couple of simple ones to begin with, which is just a ping request and a HTTP request. And you know, they're fairly simple, but actually it covers 90% of a server being online. Can it do ping? Can you do a web request to it? As a general rule, that is pretty definitive of whether a server is working, whether it's healthy or not. They actually turned into quite a lot of work, because I had to use, I didn't have to, but I had to really use asynchronous programming, which was quite a nice little learning curve myself, and there was no, I decided to use IO async, and there was a ping module, but it was only a TCP ping, which didn't work for what I had, so I ended up creating an ICMP ping, which was quite difficult. I ran into problems with memory leaks and that as well, but that's now all sorted. And then the HTTP request was actually quite easy because there was already a module ready to go on that. The other one I want to develop is quite niche, is a sort of email loop, and that's for simple lists, obviously for mailing lists, just to check that I can send an email to a list and I get a reply back, and that shows that that's working. But like I say, quite modular, so you can sort of chuck these in. In fact, this is the other reason I wanted to write it myself, was because if I need a module, I'm very comfortable with it, and I can just create a module for anything I need to do, rather than to hack around with something I don't understand. And then finally, alerts. So, like I said, I've just got an email one at the moment, and that's actually been fine for what I need. I did think about doing an SMS one, which would probably be quite easy, but I haven't done that yet. So the controller is the thing that sits in the middle and controls it all. So it does do what I said, which is go out and get that data from the servers being monitored. It also does those checks, and then finally, it actually has got a little web server in it as well, and it'll do some visualization of that. So at the moment, that just does visualization of the agents within the servers, as I didn't see much need to do a cryptographic ping and so forth, but that's easily possible. And then finally it sends the alerts. But just to give you an idea, I just knocked up a little graphical front end for this, so that's a real graph of some of my servers. If you hover over one of those lines, it'll tell you what server it is. So you can see there's a pretty big peak in that one, so I think that's going back a while, but that was when I had some problems with the server leaking memory, and I needed to know when obviously it hit the memory limit. And actually the other useful thing about that was I could see exactly when that memory had been reached, and I could then go back to the server and have a look and see what was going on the server at that time, and that helped me to pin down the problems. So the configuration, very simple, no discovery. Yes, it would be nice, but there's just no need for it for the size of the one I've got. So it's just a simple database, and I just put the host in. I don't deploy hosts very often, so whenever I do, I just put it into the host table. It would be nice to integrate it with the configuration management database I've got, but it's just nice to have really. It's a low enough overhead as it is. The hosts themselves are just configured with a very simple configuration file locally. So picture paints 1,000 words. So on the left is the host being monitored. So you can see you've got the agent that runs on there. Like I said, just a simple Perl script, and then a SQLite database, and then the controller on the right. So you can have lots of the ones on the left, and then the controller on the right, which goes and gets that data, runs the web service, and does the checking. So like I said, remote agents, just a little standalone web service. I forget the module I used, one of the standard Perl modules for that. I wanted to keep it sort of nice and small. Like I say, it's only 150 lines of code, just install it locally, and then configure it with a configuration file. And I just run it with systemd with a simple service file. I wanted to keep it fairly small, so it comes in about 50 megs, which is probably larger than I would have liked, but it's still fairly manageable on a server. Sorry, 50 megs of memory, that is, when it's running, which is bigger than I wanted, but reasonably manageable. And then the controller, like I said, the controller runs with IO async for checkers. It's database agnostic, so it just uses dbix class, and then I've managed the schema with dbit migration. So if you were to install this, you just deploy the schema, create a user in the database, it's just a very simple cron job to go and get the data, and then it just runs and goes and gets the information and stores it. And then the web application for that is written in Dancer. So it's in fact, I've been running this now for a couple of years, and it's actually worked very well. I've had the problems with the memory leaks, but apart from that, it's been very reliable. It's brought to my attention when I've got a problem, and it's just worked. And I've sort of added stuff over the last few months to do some additional checking that I want to do. But stuff I'd like to do, I probably don't know whether I'll ever get around to it, but it'd be nice to write some, and the thing that always comes last, of course, of the project, write some installation instructions and documentation, so you'll find a very blank GitHub page at the moment. I'd like to remove data, especially on the script to go and get the data. It was just in there for convenience, and it's probably a bit of an overkill, really. And then maybe add some more checkers or notifiers. So in summary, I just wanted some very quick and easy monitoring, as I said at the beginning. It's very lightweight, it works, it's written in Perl. I like to think that the code is very simple and easy to plug into. And it's just suitable for something really small. It's not scalable. It's not going to manage thousands of hosts and so forth, but it's worked very well for me. And it's just been quick to deploy, quick to use, and quick to change as it needs to go along. I say it's very much in development. That's just my get out to be allowed to change things that will break your installation if you ever use it. If you have generally got an interest, then let me know, and I'm sure we can stabilise that. And do let me know if you're interested. Incidentally, I'm leaving at the break, or just after the break, so if you want to have a chat with any of that. Any questions?
Did you get it finished in time for the audit?
I got enough finished to be able to bluff it. I had this problem with the ping and the HTTP requests, and I basically wrote in my documentation that it was doing it, but it wasn't. But of course, I could bring up the nice graph and show that. I mean, the key concern really was the memory usage, because I had a lot of problems in the early days, and it did work for that. I could show a nice graph, but that is now done, I'm pleased to say.
So you're using Dance on the client side?
No, not the client side, no, sorry, on the controller.
Okay.
Is that going to be,
I'll ask you for the detail later.
Okay, yeah, I just, client side I kept it purposefully, I tried to keep the dependencies to a minimum. Server side, it was a case of convenience. I've done a lot with Dancer. It's even just simple things like loading a configuration file and being able to access it easily. It's just all there. So I just did it for convenience, really, but it's probably a bit of everything. Any questions? Thank you very much.